All right, welcome to the Pulumi Community Contributor Meeting. That's a mouthful for July 2022. My name is Laura Santa Maria, and I am a developer advocate here at Pulumi. I am your moderator for today, mostly here just to help make sure everyone is heard. This is a community meeting and it is being recorded and will be posted publicly to YouTube, so please be cognizant of what you are saying. We do have a code of conduct, so please do be excellent to one another. And I am posting the agenda in the chat for anyone who wants to see it. And with that in mind, we do have one or two small announcements. Well, maybe not so small, but I'm going to hand it directly off to Levi, who might like to just let y'all know what happened with a recent RFC for Kubernetes. So Levi, if you would like to say hi to everybody and just tell folks the exciting thing about RFCs.
Hey everyone. So we have a feature request dating back from 2018. This is one of our longest running feature requests. This was the Kubernetes patch apply work. Basically, this had been on hold for several years while we were waiting for the server-side apply feature to be stabilized upstream. Now that was available, we wrote up a RFC a couple of months ago. I've linked that there on the agenda. So I think going forward, this is going to try to be more of the process we do for these big ambiguous type features like this. So we would love to get people involved with comments for use cases or the direction that we proposed. This particular one has been accepted, and the initial release went out yesterday. We're still doing some testing. It's gated behind a feature flag, but we got a lot of really useful comments from the community, and I think that process worked really well. So like happy for people to chime in on that process or future RFCs that we put up.
And y'all are welcome to unmute and chat.
I'll just say great work on it. It feels like literally a week ago we were having conversations about how to make this work, and I'm just really amazed and astounded that we have something delivered so quickly. I can't wait to play with it. So thank you, Levi.
Yeah, really excited about this. It was definitely a community effort. I think we tend to have our own perspective on things, so getting different perspectives, especially on use cases, helps uncover things that we missed. And I think the feature design is much stronger than it was initially after having this public RFC.
Right, and so now we get into the fun meat of the agenda. Everyone's gotten a chance to vote on the topics, and we will be continuing to do this moving forward with the agenda. So keep an eye on the contribute channel in Slack. But for now, we're going to talk about the Pulumiverse because a lot of people are interested. I have my expert Pulumiversean person, David, here, who's going to just kind of give us a quick overview. But this is a discussion, so please do feel free to chime in, ask questions. If you have no idea what the Pulumiverse is, hopefully David can give a quick overview and then we'll dive in. So David, have fun.
All right. Am I okay to share my screen?
I think you can ask and then it gives me a prompt. Let me see. Let me make you a co-host. I think that's how I do that. There we go. Now you should be able to share your screen, I think.
Thank you, Laura.
Yep.
I'll just share it for a moment. You can see that, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is the Pulumiverse organization on GitHub. It is an open organization that we have a board for, and we are starting to build out and encourage and provide a place for the community to be more involved with the Pulumi ecosystem and packaging. So the Pulumiverse is a place for all of these providers and components and packages, anything that doesn't necessarily belong under github.com/Pulumi, where people can bring us experimental support for cloud providers, or bring us new abstractions for Kubernetes or anything else. Like what we want to do is provide a space where you can take that idea that you've been using within your organization and share that with the broader Pulumi community. We hope that this will help discovery and hook into the registry. Plus, you'll get some active support from the Puluminaries and from Pulumi staff as well. So even if you've got like a half-baked idea and you just need a little bit of assistance to really cement it and get it working, the Pulumiverse hopefully will be a great place for you to bring it and get that support and share it with everybody. There's much more details on our README file here. So props to Ringo and Simon, who have been really taking charge of this over the last weeks and months, building out the articles of association and describing who the board members are. Oh, well, let's not click that link. I'm pretty sure most of these links do work, and I maybe got very unlucky there. At the moment, we're still early in the Pulumiverse journey, but you'll see that we have our own infrastructure, which is, coded with Pulumi. We want that to be an example of what you can do with Pulumi, as well as a few providers that have been brought forward by members of the community that they want to raise awareness of and get support with. So, thank you to Lee Briggs, who donated to the Scaleway provider. We've got the Concourse provider from Ringo and a few other bits and pieces. We want this to be a place where you can come and learn how to build Pulumi components and packages. We know that there's work to be done there to make this easier. So you can come and open issues. We also have some guides for the Terraform if you're coming from Terraform and want to migrate. And we have the awesome Pulumi list, which we're hoping to add more and more resources to as well, with lots of links to books and good articles and videos. And just in line with the Kubernetes thing, we have the Kubernetes SDK package, where we're trying to improve our support for some of the more popular Kubernetes packages. I wasn't planning on doing an overview of the Pulumiverse, so I hope that this has painted it in a good light. I hope you understand what our motives and our message is, and I would encourage you all to come along and get involved. If there are any questions, I'll be happy. I'm okay with no questions too. My feelings are not hurt, I promise.
And I did only give David about 30 minutes to put together his overview. So thank you, David. Go ahead.
Looks absolutely phenomenal, everyone. I'm really excited to dive in and get a little bit more information about this available information. So thank you for doing that.
Also, just as a note, if you're not comfortable unmuting, you can always leave a note in the Zoom chat and I will make sure that gets read out. It looks like someone has some projects to ask about in Slack and to bring over soon. So that's exciting. Yay. We're excited to have more people participating in the Pulumiverse.
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to anyone that's on the listed on the people aspect of the Pulumiverse. We're all in the community Slack. You can DM us or ask publicly, whatever you're more comfortable with, and we'll do our best to guide you and help you. Hopefully, I'll speak to you all soon.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to chatting with you guys.
It seems like this would be an awesome place to put a lot of our boilerplate, because we could stick those with guides on how to use them. I think that would be really helpful as essentially separate domains for here's Pulumi stuff versus here is resources for you to go and build Pulumi stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Definitely. I think it would be a good home for, skeleton boilerplates and code generators, stuff like that.
Right. Well, I'm going to switch topic 2 and topic 3 because I feel like they're kind of related, but 3 is a little closer to topic 1, sort of in a lot of different ways. And so we're going to talk a little bit about improving the package authoring experience. Now, this was a topic that a couple of folks brought up and ended up getting highly voted about how to go in and build packages, but also how to maybe make that a little easier. We have on the line Aaron Friel, who is one of our engineers, as well as Ian and Alex. But Aaron, I'm going to have you be the one to kind of start as the spokesperson, and then you can punt to people. If you can just kind of give like a rough very short overview so that we can kind of get the conversation started, and then everybody can start talking all at once, or maybe not
Sure.
all at once, kind of all at once. Aaron, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. I think in line with this vision of a Pulumiverse, we want to enable more folks to manage more kinds of resources in Pulumi. And we have a number of those community contributed providers, but we know that the authoring experience isn't as easy as we'd like it to be. So we're looking at exploring we've done some hack projects internally. Big shout out to Ian, who's on this call, for a most recent hack project on having a sort of a simplified Go SDK for creating resources or creating a provider in Go. And so we're looking at ways that we could engage with the Pulumiverse community and also author some improved tooling so that it's a little bit easier to get started. There are some big paper cuts, I think, with the process right now. They're definitely it's possible to overcome them, but we want to smooth those away so that everyone can contribute something. If you have I think a common case is if a platform team is owning some sort of CRUD API for managing something internally, we want to make it fairly easy for them to author Pulumi programs that manage the resources represented by those APIs without a huge amount of effort or lift to maintain that, publish those SDKs for the 5 languages that we now support, 6 if you include YAML, although publishing that is a little bit easier.
So folks, if you have comments about kind of getting in the middle of the package authoring experience, or suggestions or things that you would like to help work on, maybe even, that would be pretty awesome. If you want to chime in, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm especially interested if anyone on this call has looked into creating their own Pulumi package to manage something that we don't currently, have support for, or if anyone on the call has looked into or even just tried to read and understand how Pulumi packaging works and how the SDKs are generated. Really want to talk with those folks about what they've seen, what looks complicated, and what we could possibly improve on.
Hey there, Sean here, Sean Sanker, and at Lumanu, the company that I work for, we have created an internal provider. Right now, we have decided to use the dynamic providers, as it looks like the barrier to entry to creating our own provider was a bit high and we weren't sure where to start. So after this, I'd love information about where to start with that. But in the meantime, we've been creating our own internal dynamic providers for specifically Doppler. And it's been a relatively simple process for creating that. But yeah, I would be curious where, if we wanted to create a bare metal actual provider, where we might start.
Yeah, so we do have on the Pulumi website, and I think I can pull up a link to the docs shortly. We have some, Ian alluded to boilerplates, which are repositories of providers written in Go, Python, TypeScript. I think we also have a bridge provider for wrapping Terraform, and then we have what's called a native provider, which is authoring in pure Go, just the if you're familiar with dynamic providers, the create, update, delete operations, implementing that in Go. But I think the thing that you might have noticed with dynamic providers is using them from other languages is a challenge, right? You author it in Python or TypeScript, I take it?
That's correct. We use TypeScript currently.
Yeah. What we want to do with, I think, improving this package authoring and publishing experience is make the authoring experience for what's called a package, or a Pulumi package, which would be not just a provider written in one language, but also the ability to generate those SDKs so that you can consume it in all of the languages that we support, much simpler. And I think we're going to start out with Go, but Python and TypeScript are both excellent candidates for us to follow up with, because dynamic providers already do quite a lot of the work there as well.
It's fantastic to hear. Thank you.
And a question in the chat was, is package here also referring to just providers or also modules?
Yeah, I think we have a diagram on the website, and actually, conveniently, I was just there, describing what a Pulumi package is, because we have, in our glossary, we have a number of these terms that somewhat seems like they overlap. So we have this concept of a Pulumi package, which is really the whole set of things that you could work with. That's the SDKs for each language, the provider implementation itself, which is typically shipped as a binary or a program, or as a package as a dynamic provider in some languages. And then something called a schema. And the schema is what enables us to project out and generate those SDKs for each language using crosscode, which is our term for our code generation facilities. So package would be all inclusive of all of those things. What we want to do is we want to level up the authoring experience and the ecosystem so that it's easy for everyone to contribute an entire package, as opposed to it's quite a bit easier, I think, if people have experience with Pulumi, writing a Pulumi library and publishing it to NPM, for example. That's fairly easy for people to consume from TypeScript. We want it to enable people to consume those from each language.
Thanks for clarifying. So my name's David. I'm really interested in this project. So I've spent the last couple of years helping out, maintaining, and contributing to a lot of on the Terraform side. They have like Terraform-AWS-whatever modules. I was converted over to the Pulumi side of things about a year or so ago, and had the joy of moving over internally at my company around 1,200 Terraform modules into Pulumi stacks and projects, which was great. But yeah, I have noticed some pain points, like a lot of things that on the Terraform side I would open source as modules. On the Pulumi side are currently living inside our closed source repos. I would love to, and they're all in TypeScript. I would love to be able to package those up as packages. It's something that I think I explored many months ago and tried on one or two, and it didn't work. I got like errors during the code generation, but if there are improvements, it's definitely something I'd love to keep working on and trying on. I do have one question on if something has been tried or thought of before. I know how a lot of like the Pulumi architecture is working right now, is all the providers are running on like their own, and I could be wrong on this, but my understanding is that the providers are running as gRPC binaries, and then a lot of the communication when you actually want to create something is happening through gRPC calls. Would it be possible to expose like stubs so that in any language you could create a gRPC binary, and then you could really, like, even if you were using Python, you could call a package written in TypeScript, but you just communicate to it through gRPC as opposed to doing a code gen approach?
That is an interesting idea. It actually, I first want to say welcome to the ecosystem. You mentioned migrating over. So first of all, welcome. And you also mentioned having some code gen issues. If you wanted, just as an aside, to reach out to me, it's my last name at pulumi.com. Or if it's something you can share publicly, creating an issue on the Pulumi repo. We certainly want to take any sort of code gen issues, anything that was generated incorrectly, and address those. So those two things aside, the gRPC approach, just exposing those gRPC bindings directly for people to call into providers in an untyped way, that's an interesting idea. I don't think we've had a lot of discussion about that internally, but I'm actually reminded of when I interviewed with Pulumi some 8 months ago. I happened to talk with Joe, the founder, about Haskell in our interview, and he was motivated to create exactly what you mentioned. He wrote a very thin shim over our RPC interface so that he could call into providers via a Haskell program. And so it was a very lightweight way of enabling a language without really having to do a lot of the ceremony. So I think that's an interesting approach. And as I think about it, sounds more interesting to explore, definitely.
Cool. Yeah. That'd be great. And then I'll gladly reach out to on the code gen side of things. I'll try to restart some of those efforts, and we'll reach out if the issues are still persisting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open up the floor for the last topic, which is just getting more involved. Anybody have any comments, questions, just statements of where they want to start contributing and how maybe we can start making it a little easier to contribute if that's part of the problem, or we can hit any roadblocks that folks are needing us to address. Generally, this is your time to discuss as a community.
It might be interesting to ask for folks on the call if they've already tried creating an issue or making even a code contribution to Pulumi or any of its repos or any of its providers. And if so, what was your experience and how could we improve on that?
So I've created an issue about how I believe a queue and a queue policy are treated, and the actual plan that is created to handle that, right? Create, update, delete, replace kind of things. And it was fine, of course, making an issue. The issue hasn't been addressed, but obviously it's not something that maybe is a priority. What I was curious about is how I could get about actually addressing it myself and fixing it myself. I reached out with our customer support rep, our account manager, to get some info on that, and maybe he'll get back to me at some point. But if there's another way that I could get more info about, you know, the update plans, how I can change those, how I can dig in, how I could maybe solve that issue myself, I can also post the issue link here. Yeah, I would love to be able to fix it myself. I don't want to just like pawn it off to someone else and be like, hey, you fix this, you know. I would love to fix it. I just don't know where to start. So I'll throw in the issue here and maybe someone can point me in the right direction. And of course, I did start on the Slack first, confirming it was an actual issue before going and just throwing in an issue.
Well, thank you for creating that issue. I guess first of all, I want to say I'm sorry that it doesn't look like we've replied to your message about being happy to help work on this. So I'll make sure that we get to that. I think definitely we want to look into that for the update policy. Yeah, I think I know who I can reach out to and make sure that we have a reply on this. I think especially when anyone replies to an issue with saying, hey, I want to chip in, we should definitely be fairly proactive there in pointing them in the right direction.
Well, I greatly appreciate that, and I look forward to being able to hop in, get a little bit more knowledge on how to actually fix this, and maybe be able to contribute in other ways and other issues like this when it pops up in my experience or when other people have issues. It'd be great to be a part of the community at a deeper level.
I will say, just kind of taking a very quick peek, I see that this is in the AWS repo. So this is going to be one of the bridged providers. So I think that might be why there might have been a little bit of hesitation on how, where can we point you? Because that one's a little more complicated than some of our native ones sometimes. But just to make sure we know that the, what's the words I'm looking for today? The bridge providers often have other dependencies like up on the Terraform bridge side. So sometimes there's some stuff there that we need to encourage getting fixed. So there might be some like, hey, would you post it in this repo as well to help kind of drive that? So if you see those kinds of comments, sometimes there's not really much we can do where we are, but it's actually part of the bridge itself that needs to get fixed. So sometimes you'll see that. So just so that you know, when we say that, it's not us kind of saying, well, we're going to push that off. It's more along the lines of we need to find a way together how to move forward overall across everyone who uses infrastructure as code and cloud computing. So
I appreciate that information. I'd love to learn those path traversals as well, and those kind of heuristics of go here, when this, if that,
yeah,
Thank you for that info.
you're welcome. I know for me in general, like if somebody posts an issue and I'm trying to help figure it out, like on Slack, they post a question. If I run into a bridged provider, I always know I'm going, oh no, I have to go figure out where did this come from? Where's this piece? How did this get added together? So
Awesome.
it's a little bit of a rabbit hole sometimes, but it's a fun rabbit hole if you're into that. So
Absolutely.
should be a good time.
Yeah, from my experience, I've contributed a few times over the last 2 years or so. It's been a good experience. A lot of my contributions are maintaining a project that's outside of the Pulumi org right now. So that's been I'm the owner, but I'm interested in maybe bringing that over to the Pulumiverse. That sounds exciting. We'll chat about that on Slack. I've made a few changes to Pulumi. I think I only have one merged PR. I've made like a few. I have one that I've been maintaining a fork of Pulumi for around a year now. There's one PR that was kind of it's hanging in limbo until the next, because it's a breaking change that they I think Joe Duffy mentioned that he is interested in releasing it, but is waiting for the next major change. I was maybe wondering if you guys have, I know it's tricky because like when you do releases, there are multiple SDKs right across the different languages and stuff. I was wondering if you have any insights into where contributors could look for like maybe doing like beta versions of major releases, or just how the release schedule overall works.
Yeah. So I'm on the platform team, and that may not mean a lot to folks outside of Pulumi. For me, it means largely owning the engine, which would be the Pulumi repo, code generation, which is the tool used to generate a lot of those SDKs in other languages. And then there's a smattering of other repos. Then we have the providers team, which is our other open source oriented team, which owns mostly the AOS, Azure, GCP, et cetera, providers, the Terraform bridge, a number of the, I think, 2 Pulumi tools as well to help get folks onto our platform. And I can say that it kind of depends in terms of how to get started, where you want to contribute. The engine, of course, I would say is there's a number of moving parts to the engine, so it can be a little bit tricky. It definitely took me a few months to get fully onboarded, and I work here as full time to get onboarded into understanding where to start with things on the engine. But if you start with an issue and ask for pointers on where to get started, definitely interested. And then I also mentioned those 2 teams because I think we have different release cadences. For the Pulumi CLI and the engine, we try to release every 2 to 3 weeks. I think right now it's every 2 weeks rotation, but I can double check that. And we do a minor release. The providers then will async update and update code gen based off of the most recent Pulumi release. I think we're actually trying to explore long-term how we could disaggregate even the Pulumi repo. Right now, you kind of get a lot all at once when you update to a new Pulumi release. You get new language hosts for each of our 4 main languages and YAML and Java as well. I think we want to make it possible for people to opt in to, say, a beta release of a language, right? So I think as we look towards GAing YAML and Java support, what would it mean to make a breaking change? We want to be able to make sure that folks can downgrade or switch to a different version of that language, especially for YAML, where we can actually control the syntax and things like that. In terms of making beta releases, we don't currently publish those, but we actually do. Every time we make a push to the main branch on Pulumi, we do publish a snapshot. So I think it would be interesting to maybe on a more frequent cadence, make that available as like a beta version that you could download and try to opt in. But we try to release pretty frequently to avoid major changes in each release.
Cool, that's helpful. It's definitely an interesting problem with all of the different SDKs you're trying to manage at once. So I definitely sympathize with that. That sounds like some good options coming into the future.
I think related to that, we had an issue that we created on the Pulumi repo a week or two ago about dog fooding our own snapshot releases or having sort of a mode where you could try out the early releases of Pulumi. Would that be something that would be interesting to you as well? And what would your use case be, like for validation or something else?
Largely for validation, in some sense, just to reduce kind of like I think it's a little bit different problem, which is okay. It's still, I think, useful, but the problem I was more interested in is not just trying out changes that are on master, but if there was almost like a separate branch that would also publish that was able to contain breaking changes. Like the one in reference, I can just post the PR link, but it would be a breaking change just for the Pulumi /AWS NPM package. And that's something where like I'm not sure, like they don't want to merge it now because they don't want to just break the version without doing a major release everywhere. But it's like, then how can I use that code without having to fork it and publish my own binaries?
I clicked on your issue and thanks for sharing that. Yes, this for anyone who is just joining in or hasn't clicked the link yet, it's related to making TypeScript and TS Node, which are used for the TypeScript language support, peer dependencies. Right now in Pulumi 3.x, we pin a specific version of TypeScript, and there are some ways to sort of force a higher version of TypeScript to get some of the new syntax support and type checking support. But it's a breaking change. We don't want to cause folks programs to stop building because we made it a peer dependency. It's a tricky issue. It's one that I'm very familiar with, and I'm also personally excited to improve on because there's a lot of room for improvement in the speed of the type checking and TS Node experience. And there's a lot of interesting tools out there now, like SWC, that could be significant improvements in how fast we can run. And David asks, Deno as well. Yes, there's a lot of interesting innovation happening in the Node.js space. And unfortunately, because we've had that pin dependency, we're kind of frozen on that. We definitely want to fix that. And I think that disaggregation or being able to opt into, say, a V2 or a V4 of the Node.js language support, that would be very exciting for us. I think if we could move in that direction so that we're not moving the entire ecosystem in lockstep, because sometimes it's not what all of our customers and users want.
Yeah, that sounded great. And apologies for taking up too much time on this specific issue, but just more generally on having those breaking changes and being able to support those like per package. I think that would be really, really cool and help things in general move quick, because that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think I can speak for the fellow folks from the platform team who are on the call but not on video right now, that we are very interested in figuring out ways to move the language support. So right now we have YAML and Java in their own repositories, and there are ways we have not built this into the CLI yet, but there are ways to actually run, if you wanted to downgrade your version of Pulumi YAML, there's a way to do that. And we want to build that support into the CLI to be able to support that use case, but we want to also then do that for all of our languages. And issues like the one that you just shared are exactly why.
Great, that makes good sense.
All right. Well, if folks are are done talking, I'm going to give everybody just a chance to say more, but also we do want to add some shout outs to this. So normally what we'll have everybody do is if you want to shout out any other contributor, I'll make sure I collect them and they get posted here to the agenda. I just want to shout out everybody who showed up today. I'm very excited, and everybody who voted on the first topics for the very first contributor meeting. But yeah, just head on over to Contribute in Slack to shout people out, and I'll make sure that gets added and we call them out every month. But any last things you all would like to talk about? Because obviously we didn't fill up the whole time. Sometimes that happens in community meetings, sometimes it doesn't. So I want to give everybody some space to say anything else they'd like to say about being a contributor to Pulumiverse, getting involved.
I think I'll say the obvious shout out here, which is shout out to everyone who's made an issue or pull request to any of our open source repos. It's extremely welcomed and appreciated. And I can't say thanks enough for all of the detailed feedback and bug reports and just incredibly great issue descriptions from our community members.
All right. I guess that'll just about cover it for today's community meeting. Thank you all for joining us. Again, this is going to be going up on the YouTube on Pulumi TV, so you'll be able to view past community meetings there as time goes on. Also, the agenda notes that I've been taking throughout the meeting will end up on the Pulumiverse governance repo, I think is where we decided to drop those, so that you can look back at the agendas from prior meetings over time. But on that note, thank you all for joining us. I'm very happy everyone could make it, and we'll see you next month on the second Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Central. And I don't know where else everybody's time zones are, but at some point in the future. Thanks, y'all.